See Cal, could Liz come up?
Okay, folks, we are live on Facebook.
Okay. Well, why don't we start, Cindy, and we'll,
Okay.
because just to let everybody know that Captain Randy England has to leave at 5:45, so we're going to move quickly and get him up to the top of, so we can have some valuable time. So we're going to start on time. Cindy, please.
Okay, so we're calling to order. It's 5:30. Let's start the Pledge of Allegiance. So I guess we need the flag. Jason, please. Go. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do a roll call. I'm going to go rather quickly. Che, I see you. Scott,
Yes.
I see you. Marty,
Yes.
and you said Paul's on the phone. Paul.
Yes, no, I'm here.
Paul's right there.
Oh, great. Okay. Abby.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay, Wanda.
Here.
Cal.
No, no.
No, Cal.
Elizabeth Liz
Is
here.
Elizabeth online here?
She is in the
Okay.
attendees.
And Brooks
Yes.
and Kathy.
Yes.
Okay, and the approval of the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve? Or is there any changes, I should say? Is it okay?
We need to make some adaptations to the agenda. Scott, do you want to
Okay.
do it, or would you like me to do it?
Yes, please.
Please, go ahead.
We're going to make the following changes to the agenda with if everyone approves. First of all, we're going to go straight to Captain Randy England right after the approval of the agenda. Then we will follow as planned, conflict of interest, correspondence, consent calendar, representatives. And then when we get down to the informal informational presentation items, we will start with Mike Lair because Supervisor Hopkins is in a COVID meeting at this point. So we will start the informational presentations without Supervisor Hopkins and bring her in when she joins us. The rest of the agenda will flow as expected. So there are no deletions or additions, just a little moving around in order to accommodate people's schedules.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move. Oops.
So,
And a second?
second.
Okay, Jay.
You
Glad everyone's
I want to get in there.
Move it.
okay. Quickly, I'll go through Che.
Here,
vote?
here. What?
Okay, Scott,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Paul,
I don't think I can vote yet.
Yes. As an
Sure.
alternate.
I think I'm still an alternate until March when the swearing in can occur.
But you're standing as on the council. You're stepped up, so you can vote.
Okay, yes.
Abby. Are you on mute?
Yes.
Okay. Wanda,
Yes.
Cal,
Liz.
Liz. Okay, Brooks,
Yes.
Rooney. Brooks, Rooney, sorry, Kathy.
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, introducing Captain Randy England from CHP. He has about 11 minutes to be with us, so the floor is yours and we'll welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I apologize for it being short of the time. I will be here long term, so this won't be the first and only time you see me. Dealing with the Capitol and what's going on today and all the events, they've had us on tactical alert since last Saturday. So it's been an interesting few days dealing with that, and thankfully we've had no major events go on. So better to be over prepared for this. And to give you a little bit about my background, I grew up over in Fort Bragg. My wife and I both grew up about a block from each other. I went to college here in Sonoma County, was assigned to San Francisco out of the academy, and spent a couple years in San Francisco. I transferred to Ukiah in December of '98 and did a bunch of different collateral duties there and different jobs. I worked in a task force for over 3 years. And then my son was getting old enough, I needed a more set schedule, and I worked special duty for just over 4 years. And that was probably one of the funnest jobs I ever had. I was a public information officer when I was there. In 2012, I promoted to a sergeant up in Garberville area. I was a sergeant for just over 4 years there. And then I took over as the lieutenant commander in 2016. Transferred to Lake County in 2018. And then very blessed and fortunate enough, I did well in the last captain's test, took that, and I'm able to replace Ari. So I've known Captain Wolf, or now Chief Wolf, for a long time. It was kind of a win-win for all of us. Well, maybe not for you, but for him and I, because he got to go up to the north and promote, and I got to come here. And what I've seen so far from this community and from the officers, my lieutenants, I've got 2 of the best lieutenants I've ever worked with. I'm really looking forward to working in this office and working in this area. And that's a little bit about my background. I'm very blessed, and I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon.
Thank you. I'd like to say that I've just been extraordinarily impressed with the quality of the people that are officers with CHP. I just need to put that out there. I really appreciate their being here and how it is to interact with them.
Well, I thank you. That's good feedback.
Jason, should we have the recording on, or is
Please
it on?
record. Yes, please.
So sorry about that. Go ahead.
Any council members want to chime in? We have some minutes.
Welcome to our community, Randy. We lean on the CHP a lot for help out here in Bodega Valley Ford. So thank you for all that your officers do and that you will be doing here in our community. Welcome, very much appreciated.
Thank you. That's one of the things on my agenda. And once we were getting past this, I am going to be making a drive here either next week or the week after, as long as I can get, there's no more craziness or any craziness. But I talked to Quentin, and I'm sure all of you are very familiar with him. I've known him for a while. He's a Ukiah boy, grew up there, and he, talking with him, the one thing that I was really excited about is to see his excitement and the pride he has and what they've done in that, working in that community. I know he enjoys it. He enjoys the office they've set up out there. And he goes, I want you to come out here. I'll do a ride along, show you all around. And it was refreshing to me to see somebody that excited about working in that community and taking ownership of the community like that.
Jason, are there any questions or hands raised in the public?
We currently do
Can I-
not have any hands raised in the public, Scott.
Okay,
Can I
Kathy,
make a-
please.
Yeah, I would just like to say that Quentin is my neighbor because I live at Salmon Creek Beach, and he's a great neighbor as well. And it's nice to have the feeling that you have a local CHP officer that's in the community and lives here and understands it.
That's kind of my understanding from talking to him, and just, it was nice for me to have somebody that takes ownership and has pride in the area that they work. And I know he cares a lot about your community.
And he probably has filled you in on a lot of the problems we have here.
We went over a few of them, and I think it's manageable. And he seems to have a pretty good understanding of the needs of your community. And
Good.
I look forward to building on what's already been established there as well.
Good, because we need your help, that's for sure.
Our group here is a county advisory council.
Okay.
But out here on the coast, we are so dependent on on state agencies.
Mhm.
I think going forward, we really want to develop a strong relationship and working relationship with the state agencies, CHP, among them. Look
Yeah.
forward to it. And we'll have you to future meetings. And we'll be able to delve in more. Welcome.
Thank you.
Randy, this is Cindy. I'm actually not a voting member, but my husband and I have a house in Timber Cove. And a couple of years ago, we had a head-on Highway when someone came around the wrong side of the corner, and the highway patrolman, there was two, were fabulous. So it was pretty awful, but we were all okay.
Well, that is, like I said, I keep looking for where they're hiding the dead bodies because it just seems too good to be true. And the quality of people we have here, I'm just excited of what we're going to be able to build here. And what our Chief Wolf did before, he made it a pretty easy, job for me to take over. And this has probably been the easiest transition. And this is the third command I've had, and this is the easiest transition. And having the resources here, it's kind of nice. I have a lot more resources than I've had in the past.
Brooks.
Randy, yeah. Randy, what is your territory besides overseeing the highway patrol people on the coast? What other areas are you responsible?
We pretty much have a county true area with the exception of right there by Sonoma, the city of Sonoma.
Okay.
Like a very, very small portion that the Napa CHP will cover. But outside of that, we have all of Sonoma County.
Good. Look forward to having you come and live here and join our community.
No, that I'm really excited about being here. And this is kind of, I never say never, but I'm pretty sure this is my final stop. And I don't want to keep climbing. There's always a carrot to go chase, but I don't want my last few years. I've got 3 to 5 years left in my career, and I want it to be enjoyable and just run my own office is the game plan right now.
Good.
Scott, we do
Okay.
have one hand raised in the
Excellent.
attendees, Eric Frazier. Shall we take this question?
Yes.
Eric, you should be able to speak now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and, of course, the time of everybody who serves on this board. And welcome aboard. So I noticed on the agenda today for this board was a discussion about parking in the coast, and I assume also probably in the lower Russian River writ large. Can you tell us whether CHP has any jurisdictional authority over parking, and if it does, in what areas?
And I think Chief Wolf had covered this before with, I think in the last meeting that this committee had discussing where there's no county ordinance, we don't have any authority or nothing against the law, and there's no parking signs. We don't have any authority on those areas.
Okay, we can fill out that when we have our parking ad hoc presentation as well. I think your time is about there.
Okay, well, I thank you very, very much, and I get to go jump to another meeting, but I look forward to working with you guys and being here in the future. If you guys ever have any questions, please do not hesitate to get a hold of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look
Thank you.
forward-
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, we'll move right along here. Are there any statements of conflict of interest by any of the MAC members?
No?
Okay. Any correspondence?
There was none.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Okay, moving to the consent calendar. First is the approval of the November general meeting minutes. Are there any comments about the minutes from any of the council members? Brooks?
Cindy, I hate to do this because you did such a beautiful job of minutes. Just on page 2, you made a reference to, it's in the 3rd paragraph, Oyster Catcher Loop Beach. It is Short Tail Gulch trail that leads to the beach, but
And I'm sorry, it's short, what?
Short Tail, Tail,
Oh, okay, great.
Gulch.
Gulch, got it.
Yeah.
Thank
Oyster
you.
catcher, that refers to the road, right?
To the trail.
To the, okay.
It's a trail that goes down to the beach, yeah.
It's from Oyster Catcher though, Scott. Yeah,
The road, yes.
yeah.
That was brought up by one of the residents.
Correct.
Mhm.
All right, anything else?
No, I didn't see anything else.
No, great job.
Kathy, I corrected yours, so, so
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. You
Okay,
did
do
a
I
great
have
job
a
though.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
motion to approve?
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes. Beautiful minutes that Cindy did.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second?
Second, Marty.
Second.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll quickly go through again my list here. So Jay,
Aye.
okay, Scott,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Wanda.
I,
Has Cal joined
no.
or Liz?
Mhm.
Okay, Brooks
Yay.
and
Aye.
Kathy.
Hi.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so passes, right? So now approval of the annual report.
Oh, yeah.
Any comments about the annual report?
I thought you did a great job. It just didn't go on and on, but you had everything very nicely summarized. You did a great job, Scott
Well, and Cindy was.
and Cindy.
Brooks,
I wrote the summary, so.
Brooks, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same as Kathy. I thought you did an excellent job, and I move that we approve the annual report.
Second.
Second.
Oh, Marty was the second? Okay, just a sec here. Okay, let's see, let's vote. Shay,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Wanda,
I,
Cal, Liz. Okay, Brooks, did someone speak?
Yep.
Was that Liz? No.
Liz is in the audience.
Liz
Oh, okay.
is on the call as a participant.
Okay,
So
Oh.
she's on the call, but I think she's mute. I don't think she can talk because of the way it's set up. But I see her name.
okay, go on.
Brooks
Aye.
and Kathy.
Aye.
Great. Yeah, well, you have a quorum, so we're okay.
Yeah.
So it passes. I just want at this point to say how fortunate we are to have Cindy and how hard she works and how her product is so outstanding. I just want to acknowledge that. Thank
Well,
you.
and I'd like to second that because I've been a proofreader and Cindy is just doing a great job. And I really appreciate the level of attention she puts into the job.
Yeah, we're all volunteers and it takes a lot of time for Cindy. Okay, now we're moving on. We're going to talk about 2021 representatives. Elise, do you want to take this section, please?
Thank you. In October, we held a call for representatives, and many with the founding MAC, we staggered the terms a little bit. So some of your representatives were still have another year to go. And those are Marty Campbell, Scott Farmer,
Cal.
Cal Ares, and
Brooks.
Brooks Rooney. And we opened up the process for new representatives. I'm happy to say that most of our representatives stuck with us. I think we were, as a council, really starting to hit our stride, and it's good to have this level of experience and commitment. Dibby Tyler from Sea Ranch dropped off, and replacing her will be the alternate, Paul Plakos. Is it Plakos or Plakos, Paul?
It's Plakos.
Paul Plakos. And we also have a new alternate in Sea Ranch, Ann Yeager. Ann, I see you here in the attendees. Can you put your hand up and we'll have you say hello? Jason, can you?
Talking permitted. Go ahead.
Acknowledge. Ann?
Hi, this is Ann.
Nice to meet you, Ann. We'll have to work on getting a picture for you next time.
Okay, sounds good.
So welcome all to the start of the 2021-2022 term. We will be providing the swearing in the March meeting. The official appointing of the 2021-2022 council is on the Board of Supervisors agenda for the 26th. We had it on the agenda for the 12th, but then they took off the consent calendar and it got moved to the 26th. So we will proceed with our current quorum and do a swearing in next meeting as well. The next item that needs to be handled in terms of our council members is the election of the chair and the vice chair. Do we have nominations for chair?
Well, I can jump in here. I think Scott's done a great, actually fantastic job. So if you're willing to jump on that sword again, Scott, I nominate Scott.
Any other nominations?
I second it.
I third it.
So I get my statement. I've maintained that in order for us to grow and be stronger, that this role needs to kind of rotate through the group. And I still feel that way. It is a lot of work, but it's important that we all take on. So predicated on all of you, including the alternates, beginning to attend and become members of ad hocs. If there's something you're very interested in, bring it up. And it may be appropriate to have an ad hoc, and you may end up chairing it. So now we can start doing more. But I think that the same people tend to show up on the ad hocs. I'm expecting everybody, council members and alternates, to serve on ad hocs. Is that a fair agreement?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we're all gonna grow together, and the next round, expect to want to volunteer. You all can do it. There's a lot of support, and it's not a threatening thing. It's not a difficult thing. It's an enthralling experience, and Elise is very supportive. And so in the interest of bridging one more year, I'm willing to take it on.
Thank you, Scott. We all deeply appreciate your hard work and your excellent leadership. Thank you so much. Tindy, can you have the roll call?
Sure. Okay, let's go ahead. Jay? I
Aye.
think he's on mute. Oh, there we go. Scott?
Mention.
Okay. Marty?
Aye.
Paul? Paul, are you on mute?
No, I said aye.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Abby?
Aye.
Wanda?
I
Cal?
Liz.
Brooks,
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Yay.
Scott, I'd like to nominate Marty Campbell as vice chair.
Are there any other nominations?
I second that.
Does Marty have a statement?
I would be delighted to be vice chair again. As I've told Scott and Elise, I had thought about being chair, but I've had some personal issues come up that will prevent me from being chair this year. So I heartily endorse Scott to continue, and I'd like to continue as vice chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marty.
So we have a motion, right?
Yes.
Roll
So
call,
we had
Susan?
Paul and Brooks, I believe.
Okay.
Roll
So-
vote.
Go ahead and vote. Okay, Jay,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Abby,
I,
Wanda.
Aye.
I'm going to assume Cal isn't going to be coming. Brooks
Aye.
and Kathy.
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
I'd like to wrap up this segment around the representatives and the chair and vice chair and second Scott's comment with regard to the alternates. One of our main jobs as council members is to be a voice for our particular communities. And that requires not only coming in and expressing what our communities want, but it also means doing outreach and developing talent and relationships between the council so that we create sustainability. We have a few alternate positions still open, too many alternate positions still open. And I encourage anyone out there who is interested in being an alternate to let us know. The positions still open are Fort Ross, Bodega Bay, and Bodega Valley Ford. So those three areas. And so it is incumbent upon those that are in those areas to think about joining the council as an alternate. I think that our first year or year and a half, we didn't involve the alternates very much because we were just trying to figure out how to work with our regular representatives. But we have since then begun having alternates serve on ad hoc committees and getting much more participatory. So I think it's quite important that we as council members and as staff reach out to people within our community that you think would be good to get involved with the council so that as you all sunset out someday, we have great people who have already, participated a bit, ready to go. So I would appreciate our working on that. So.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Kathy?
I'll just say really quickly that hopefully maybe this coming year with the vaccines coming out and everything, that maybe we'll actually be able to socialize again.
Yeah.
And get more community input, because it's really hard to do that right now. And, it's been tough for everyone. So maybe when things settle down, it'll be a little bit easier to start getting other members in our community interested.
Yep, absolutely.
And Wanda?
And yeah, and could, if any alternates become interested in these positions, could they join during our term, or do they have to wait until October and
Alternates can join
get
anytime
on in March?
because
Join anytime. Thank you.
this is an appointed council. And so if anybody drops out, or anybody new comes in, we can appoint them.
Okay.
Here's
good, thank you.
Liz. Yay.
Where's Liz?
Okay.
Yay.
Hey, Liz. Okay.
I've been here the whole time, but for some, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, I've been here, but for some reason I didn't see myself in here. I could see the picture of myself, I don't know if anybody can see me now, or I don't know what's going on.
We
We
can
hear
see
you.
Anyway, I've been here and I've been. So everybody can hear me. You
Yes.
just luckily can't see me.
That's
Well,
right.
you could put it on,
lucky.
there's video up at the top and that'll allow it to show you.
Upper bottom.
Because I had myself going and, oh, there it is. Okay, maybe somehow I must have clicked it
There
off.
you go.
I've been
Ah,
standing here.
yay.
Let's move on. Public comment.
Sorry.
That's okay. Comment from the public regarding matters of general interest are not on the agenda, but related to Sonoma Coast MAC business. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Sonoma Coast MAC cannot consider issues or take action on any request during this comment period. Due to time constraints, comments will be limited to at the discretion of the chair, 2 minutes. Jason, are there any comments pending?
Yes, we have a hand raised by Eric Frazier. Eric, I'm going to mute you, and then I will start the 2-minute timer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to address you again this evening and really appreciate your hard work. And Chairman Farmer, congratulations on your re-enlistment. I head up an organization that's relatively new called Truth in Tourism. And we started because we found that when there was discussions about tourism, if you will, it's actually a pretty poor word to use, because what we're describing are visitors. Here in the coastal MAC, you have an even grander job to do because, of course, the coast belongs to all of us. People on the inland of the Sonoma County, as well as people from throughout the state. And so what we also see in looking at our organization is that quite often information is distorted in order to stoke emotional responses. We see it quite often. Again, that's probably the use of tourism so frequently in government report outs. But we definitely see it roost in the discussions about vacation rental management. And quite a number of times we've seen distortions about the number of people that go to the coast, where they come from. And I just want to remind you that certainly over the past few months, a lot of the visitors have been people from the county or from adjacent counties. When it comes to the Coastal Commission, I know that we're up for a revised LCP to be submitted perhaps the next couple months. Really distressed to see the lack of outreach to people that have a vested interest in the coastal resources. So I hope as an organization, you really do pledge to have wholehearted, honest, verifiable outreach to the community writ large. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you send me your contact information? Either to me or to Elise, please. I have an email
Okay.
on the website. Elise has an email.
Next up, we have C. Higgins.
Okay.
See, I'm going to unmute you, and your 2 minutes. Begin now.
Good evening. Oh, hello. Good evening, everybody. It's C. Higgins. And once again, thank you for all that you do and all the growth in the coastal MAC. So kind of speaking of tourism, or rather visitors to our coast, I wanted to focus specifically on the safety of our visitors to our coast. You know, it seems as if this recent tragedy of losing a father and 2 children hasn't been enough to make folks pay attention to just how, yes, beautiful, but how dangerous our coast can be. Just this past Saturday, I silly decided to go out in the surf and I got pretty beat down. And by the time I was able to come in, was about 500 or 600 yards away from where I started. and was walking along the beach on the way back. You know, there was no visibility, a gigantic long period swell and incoming tide scour on the beach. And I stopped 3 families with small toddlers, 2 of them with their children unattended, who were playing in the water, and asked them to come up out of the water line. I then went to the ranger station and asked them to patrol this part of the beach. And so what I am really hoping, I understand that, you know, telling people about sneaker waves, people don't understand what sneaker waves are. They think it's one wave. As a surfer, I can tell you, it's a set of waves. And that they, you know, the warnings don't mean anything to them. And they're so excited to finally be at the coast. They just want to put their feet in the water. I'd like to see some kind of education program, maybe in our inland schools, brochures at all our vacation rentals, something that really helps folks understand the dangers of our coast and how to behave so that we can avoid more tragedy here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something we've been talking about, especially the past couple of weeks. I think Elise has, you want to comment about that, Elise?
We're working at developing signage and education pieces around that, but Scott, we're not supposed to be commenting on public.
That's correct. It is later in the agenda.
Okay, we have Vesta. She has her hand raised.
Vesta, please.
Vesta, muted you. And
okay, I found the unmute button. All right. I wanted to say that I also had that same experience. I went out to Doran Park and had to remind people to stay out of the surf. They were going way too deep. There is no signage along the beach itself. There might be something back at a parking lot. I didn't see one at the parking lot where I was. And literally people were running out and playing in the waves, and having been caught in a wave in the past, I know that that's really dangerous. I don't know whether it's a matter of someone going out and laminating some of the articles that come up on, you know, in the Press Democrat that says these people died, to get their attention. There are kids who did not pay attention to their parents. So when we said something, the parents thanked us, but it was just way too prevalent. They really had no clue, none. The signage is not enough. So there might be something else we can do. And I don't know what that would be, but I would suggest it very strongly.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any others, Jason?
yes, we have David Wabo. David, you're on mute. And your 2 minutes have begun.
Hi,
Go ahead, Dave.
hi. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is David Wavell. I'm the owner of a small vacation rental cabin called the Old Cazadero Cabin. I wanted to thank you for the discussion tonight and the information you're sharing about visitors and the opportunity to share some information about a committee that was recently formed. We formed a committee, a group of business owners, workers, and parents have formed a special committee to oppose Measure B on the ballot for March 2nd. I know you're going to speak about it a little bit later. And many of the businesses that we're talking about are small businesses, not only the large hotels, but they are struggling to survive. They've laid off a lot of their workers and many of them are closed. So we're opposing this measure, and we hope you can spread the word about the measure for 6 primary reasons. The timing of the measure, given COVID, the myth that it will not impact hospitality long-term. We do believe it will impact hospitality. It will also give us the highest TOT tax rate in the state. We also didn't get a lot of time to actually understand how it would impact the rest of the Sonoma County economy. And we felt like the creation of it was rushed. We also think there's other better funding vehicles for the school long-term. We do know that consolidation may be a fact that will occur in the future. So I hope that you'll visit our website at savesonomajobs.org and get more information. We're currently raising funds and asking for volunteers to help us oppose this measure to help businesses from closing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Mhm.
Jason.
That is all we have for public comment. Scott?
And nothing on Facebook.
Let's see. And nothing on Facebook.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I just want to remind everyone that at the end of the meeting, just prior to the close, there'll be an opportunity to suggest items for future agendas. So be thinking about that as we move along. And please, that's where we get our ideas. So next, informational presentations. Mike Lair, patiently waiting, is Sector Superintendent of State Parks. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'll give you the floor and then we'll have questions, I'm sure. Welcome.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thanks for having me. I was asked to participate tonight and talk about 3 items: trash, bathrooms, and parking. I'll start with the trash. It's since this COVID thing has happened, we've just seen every day like a summer day for visitation. So we've had a lot of trash just every day, and we've had our typical trash pickup is every day in the field, but we have dumpsters that we are picked up on Fridays and Mondays, and we've been full. We've had to get extra pickups because of the amount of trash we've been picking up. So lately, in the off season, we have limited staff, and so we're probably not getting to as many cans as we would normally. So I can see probably some of that overflow. I've asked our maintenance folks to go around and take a look at it. There's also the issue with some of these rentals, and what we see a lot too are a lot of the white 11-gallon bags inside the garbage cans. And so what that typically says is somebody's been at a rental and then taking their trash to the state park to dump it. So we're aware of it. We're working on it. We've had to increase, like I say, pickups in our dumpsters for that. And I think another piece of the trash was about mowing and the microscopic pieces of plastic and debris that gets chewed up by the mowers. We don't mow the highway. That's Caltrans that does the mowing on the highway. So I can't really speak to that. I did have somebody in the community stop and talk to me about it and ask that we somebody walk in front of the mower to pick up, water bottles, etc. And I referred her to Caltrans. So I can't really speak too much to the mowing side of it. And the bathrooms, I'm really not sure what the comment about the bathrooms are. We're typically all restrooms are open when we're there. If we have a short staff day, we might close half of them because of the COVID restrictions. We have to enhance the housekeeping. So there might be some days where maybe if there's a 2-stall, one of them's closed, and that's so we can keep up with the COVID enhanced housekeeping within the restrooms. So I really don't know what else to say about that other than we try to keep them open. And I can tell you Vista Point, Jenner, and Bodega Head are basically waypoints. So where some of these, and Bodega Head are probably where we're seeing some of the problems with garbage and the restrooms. They're all pit toilets. They all have to be pumped out. But Vista Point up north, people basically stop, use the restroom, and throw the trash away. And then you get down to Jenner. If they miss Vista, they'll hit Jenner Visitor Center. And then Bodega Head is another one where it's basically stop, drop your trash, use a restroom. So I can see increase there. We really tried to take a look at those locations where we see a lot of kind of just the waypoint stopping, dumping of trash in the restrooms. And if it's bathrooms and they're not clean, then I need wouldn't need to know about that, but I don't think that's it. I think it's more of the bathrooms being closed. And parking, as Captain England had stated, parking is difficult. I think the issue out along the coast is capacity, and we don't lack the number of parking lots to accommodate all the traffic. There's not much we can do as far as people parking on the shoulder of the road. If they're not, if their vehicle's off the roadway and it's not on past the fog line, then I guess you can consider legally parked on the shoulder. It would take the county to establish no parking signs that would give us the authority to cite vehicles for parking in a no parking zone. We have the same kind of issue at Armstrong Woods. People park alongside the roadway. The lot gets full. They park out alongside the roadway, and we don't have really any authority to cite them unless they're in the traffic lane. And at that point, they're in the traffic lane. It's usually the vehicle gets towed because it's obstructing the traffic lane. So I think as the parking goes, we really need to work together, all of us, county parks, Caltrans. Caltrans has a lot of the turnouts along the coast. And so, they have some skin in the game as well. But I think if we can get together and talk about increased capacity for parking, that will eliminate maybe some of the parking on the shoulders. Also, people like to park on the shoulders for that vertical access. So they'll park and then they can just walk straight down to the beach. That's not really good for our resources either, because they create these trails systems. So we have a number of problems with the parking like that because it is destructive to the vegetation there. And our environmental scientist is aware of it. He's looked at it. We don't have any protected species per se out there that are being damaged by it. That might give us some leverage there for parking. But so I think moving forward, we have to look at increasing the parking capacity. Maybe some people don't like the sound of that because there's already that much traffic coming out to the coast, but it's a tough one to slow down. I know during the COVID, when we had the beaches closed, we still had a lot of people coming out. We had the signs on Valley Ford and the signs 116, and a lot of people that we contacted were actually Sacramento region and Central Valley. So, people are going to come out there. It's tough to stop them. If you're going to stop them, you got to get them before they get there. And even when they get there and they see the signs on the highway, they still continue in. We had cones blocking the parking lots off, but then they drove between the cones. And so we had to use mini K-rail to make sure they couldn't just drive through into the parking lot, because it made a problem of managing it. Now, with that said, closing the parking lots wasn't something we wanted to do locally. That was out of the governor's office, that we would close the parking lots. And then it got to the point where we closed the beach. So I just want to make sure it's clear that within this group that closing the parking lots wasn't our idea, because it, as we talked about before, with headquarters, it's going to push people into the neighborhoods. People are still going to come, and it's going to make for a dangerous situation for families crossing the highway to get to the park. But for the record, we that was the governor's decision. So we tried to push back on it from a department standpoint, but it didn't work. And that's all I got, unless somebody has any questions for me.
A few things. My sense is that there are quite a few restrooms scattered along the coast. Like Fisk Mill Cove has been closed for quite a while, but what seems to be the concern is that people come and choose not to use any restroom. And perhaps if they knew that there was one at Vista Point, a sign saying restroom, they would use it. And making it a little more apparent to the people driving along the coast might be useful. And the sneaker waves, if people watch the news, if they read the signs, this just doesn't seem to be enough. When we know that there are rogue waves happening or about to happen, is it possible to I know you're short-staffed, but to do a shift of more rangers and lifeguards along the coast, talking to people.
Yeah, I think that we're definitely trying to increase that. We actually should have a couple of seasonal lifeguards starting, I believe this week. So they'll be out there more patrolling the areas. When we have the big sneaker wave or big wave action, we typically, anytime advisory comes out, we close Goat Rock because of that, because of the dangers of it. That's one of the historically to try to counter that. But you still have people that walk in and want to go down there, and we do have a mobile patrol that, you know, contact people. But I think it was mentioned earlier, once they get to the beach, they want to get by the water, and you can tell them, hey, be careful, stay off the wet sand, you know, because that's, you know, dangerous. And they just don't seem to get it, you know. I had somebody send an email to me saying, oh, maybe we should put names of people that were lost due to the sneaker waves. Maybe that will hit home. And it's pretty, you know, I don't know how you get the attention of them. We are working with county parks. Our lifeguards and their lifeguards are talking about signage. We do have signage up, but we could probably always do better in that area. It's hard to put signage along the beach, but in parking lots or access points are good locations to get it. And we have the one big one at Salmon Creek that shows the waves so, but I do know we've already been talking with Sonoma County Regional Parks, and we're working on some signage for these types of events, which will be there permanently.
Okay, council questions, Kathy.
Okay, so one thing that I live at Salmon Creek Beach, South Salmon, and one thing that I notice that people pay attention to are the little signs like you had when we had the blue-green algae at Salmon Creek. Because my neighbors would go, what's up with the blue-green algae? And you know, when we have shark attacks, I actually have one of those pictures of the shark, and it says, you know, what does it say? Due to a recent shark attack, blah, blah, blah. Those little temporary signs people notice. And maybe you could have them printed up and tacked up when it's time and then take them down again. That's just a comment, because I know it's hard with regulations and everything, but people do pay attention to those little signs.
And that's a good point. And I think what we deal with a lot too is sign pollution. And it seems to be when you're over signed, people, you know, you see no, 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 and then they just walk by. What are they telling you can't do now? No dogs, no, you know. So I think you're right that if you don't see a lot of signs, you read it and they say, what are they telling you not to do? But if you see a sign that's typically not there, you're going to take a look at it, because you go, well, that's out by itself. So we have our supervising lifeguard, and like I say, we've been talking on different approaches to get the word out. We are increasing the seasonal lifeguards this time of year because of the visitation, and so we've gotten 2 coming from down south up north to work up here until May or June. So we're working on some signage, and we're also working on increasing the personnel on the beach. And that's why a lot of lifeguards, we don't have towers. We have the one at
right.
But we have, you know, roving lifeguards to try to cover a lot of area that, because as you know, we have a lot of coastal property up and down the coast. And so we use roving lifeguards as
right.
manage it.
So, and I do know personally that one of your rangers was just like tearing her hair out on Saturday, trying to get people not being in the waves at Salmon Creek Beach. She was overwhelmed with people that basically were not paying attention to the situation. And then I have this question, it's an aside, but we used to have 9 park rangers. And is state parks still underfunded? Is this something that we need to bring to like Mike McGuire? Because there's more people that come to our beaches, and it seems like the infrastructure of our beaches are not capable of handling the capacity anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that, we went through a transformation in our department, and we seemed to we downsized a little bit within our ranger staff. So that is a problem, for sure. Up at Salt Point and all that, back in, before I got here, but probably 10, 15 years ago, we used to have like 4 rangers and 2 lifeguards up north at Salt Point, and then our complement down below. And so now I think our staffing levels are, I want to say 8 rangers and 2 supervisors. So we've lost four ranger positions and a supervising ranger position. As far as the budget goes, we pretty much have the same budget that we've had for many years. For the 7 years I've been here, it hasn't really increased much. So we're still trying to do more with less. As I say, our garbage has gone up probably 10% or so every year. We have to pump all the pit toilets along the coast. So that's, and they got us. They know that when we go out to contract, who else is going to bid it, and they all can work together. So as our costs increase, we don't see a bump in our home-based budget. So it does make it difficult to manage what we have. Senator McGuire is very aware of the situation and the conversations we've had. He's kind of said that it's tough when he talks about it, because within his area of responsibility, he has many parks, but some of his colleagues have 0 parks, and it's hard for them to get behind and support funding the parks. Now, I think our current governor is a park supporter. I just don't know what that's going to look like with this upcoming budget. Yeah. The state being so bad off, and we, campgrounds closed. We're not bringing in any revenue, so yeah, it's difficult. But as a budget concern, yes, we could definitely use a uptick in our allocation for sure.
Thank you. Any other council members with questions, please? Brooks. You're muted.
I was trying to read the lips there. I'm working on it.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, might have been better. I just wondered, do you have any reliable numbers of how many people say were in the area on the coast this last weekend, Saturday and Sunday?
No, we don't have any car counts or anything like that. Yeah. Is that what you mean? Kind of what?
Well, yeah, or I just didn't know if you had some system. I think that is something that we need to do, because everybody refers to, well, we have 5 times more tourists now with COVID and, more people trying to get to the beach. Well, how do we know? What was our baseline? I think we do, and would at least give us some clout to go to our senators and whatnot to say, hey, we need more assistance out here. And yes, maybe the people in Sacramento and in Stockton don't see a need, but they all come here. So those people have to help contribute to our problem of parking and tourism.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think that, I question a lot of people when we're out there during COVID, and the majority of them were Sacramento and the Central Valley. And,
yeah,
from Sacramento, we're the closest beach, and we're a beautiful place. And so, but it's dangerous out there, but that's, you're trying to get that support. And that's what, you're right. You need the support of those, because we're actually providing the services for them as well. So I think when their colleagues talk about it, it has to be an understanding of a lot of those folks are coming here, and so we need to provide services for them as well. And so it'd be nice to get some help with that. I don't know how you do it, but you're right.
Well, I really do think that if we could get a handle on the exact numbers, I think everybody would be totally, Caltrans would say, oh my gosh, that many cars on our roads. No wonder we've got potholes everywhere, and why we need more porta potties and why we need more trash cans. And so it would just give us something else to be able to go to the people who represent us, who create the budgets and get, financially support us, to say, this is why we need more. This is, what it's costing.
So I can talk to our planner. I do believe Caltrans has a counter. I think Caltrans does keep track of number of vehicles traveled on the highway. And I believe when we were doing the Sonoma Coast fee issue that we were extrapolating some visitation numbers out of that. We did put counters in our parking lots to gauge when were people coming in and how many cars were coming in. Unfortunately, people were finding those things, and I don't know if they thought they had cameras or what, but they were basically stealing them. And but we did, yeah. And so it was nice to see like Goat Rock and some of these other areas that you could really see peak visitation. We're going to use that to try to manage the park spare. So if you see peak visitation, you could use it for interpretive moments, or you could use it when you need more ranger staff and lifeguards out there when you know that beach is going to see a lot of traffic, and also for garbage, right? If we know the peak times. So there's a lot of good information we can get out of that. We got to be able to, we might have to go to the old school and pound them into the ground, because these were little boxes and you just download them to your computer and made it really nice, but they look like little cameras. And so people were taking them, and they're not cheap. So.
Good. So we can count on your support in trying to get some counters out here so we can get some valid numbers.
Yeah, and that might be something we could work with Caltrans or somebody with to get it. Like I say, I'll ask the planner for how we the numbers are reached. But the visitation is, well, I can just tell you anecdotally by the garbage, having it, when you're dumping your dumpsters on Friday and Mondays and you're having to call in for extra pickups, that's a lot of visitation. I can't put a number to it, but I can tell you by garbage, it's a lot. So.
Thank you.
Thanks. Wanda, you had your hand up earlier. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Mike, you made a quick reference to increasing parking capacity. And of course, it's a very finite area along the coast, but I was just wondering if there's anything that State Parks or any area that State Parks has noticed, or, that could be increased for parking.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's limited space out there, right? So that's why I say when we talk about that, that's really the issue is where do you put a parking lot so people can have access? That's really the tough one. But if we don't have that, we're still left with this problem of people parking on the shoulder, and
right.
Increased parking capacity, it won't stop it, I'm sure, because as everybody knows, on a good weekend during the week, we've had during these good summer days during this time of year, we've had just like 80% of capacity. Our parking lots are full. Everybody knows it comes out there, and it's taxing on our staff as well, because we go to the skeleton crew, but now they're working just as hard to try to keep up with it all. And we don't budget for that, unfortunately. We budget for the peak season, and so we're running thin because we don't, again, have a budget to go all year round.
Paul, listen.
Yeah, Mike, you were talking about how people are parking away from the parking lots also, and just parking along the shoulder and going straight down the bluff top. I would imagine that creates a lot of bluff top erosion with these trails that you were mentioning that are created. I guess you really don't have much jurisdiction or enforcement of that, but if there were no parking signs in those areas, then you could enforce that, and we could stop people going over the edge.
Yeah. So, right. It takes. I think Captain England spoke to it earlier. It takes signage that gives us the authority to enforce the parking. So when there's no parking out there, like when the neighborhood and all that, we got a lot of complaints, but it's not illegal to go in the neighborhood and park. So we couldn't do anything, and it wasn't illegal for people to park on the shoulder. Now, if they're again on the fog line, that little white line, then we had a different violation and we had something to work with. So it would take the county to have an engineer come look at it, or the board of supervisors, take a look at how they wanted to sign parking, no parking, but that again gives us something to work with, and that could be done in consultation obviously with CHP, who's their major, that's their jurisdiction. We just help out, but we have we're state peace officers, so we have the same authority as the highway patrol, so we can enforce parking and all the other vehicle codes.
Can you also enforce people making their own volunteer trails down the bluff?
Well, there's some CCR we could use, but that's a tough one. And the judges really don't like seeing those. It's, I guess, be truthful, clogs up their system.
This is something that our parking ad hoc committee is working on with Elise. Brooks is the chair. So I think we'll work together with you. Brooks, did you want to add anything to this about parking? And then I'll go to you, Liz.
Well, we are going to talk about the parking survey and what we're trying to do a little later, but yeah, definitely. I think we would like to work with Mike and of course Caltrans and address this issue.
Okay, Liz.
Back to the issue with Caltrans and their counters, they seem to put them out at the least busy times. I'm thinking if we talk to Caltrans, I think they should just put them at all these different, entry points out to the coast on all the little highways, 116 Bohemian, and just leave them up for the year. I mean, this has been something that's totally unusual, of course. Being here in Jenner and looking right from my window right here, downtown Jenner, I can see it all with the cars and stuff. But I think they need to have those posted so that it goes for, every month. I mean, they could do it for the whole year and find out the incredible increase there's been, and I feel bad because I don't feel like we should tell people they can't come, but because they're paying their taxes to be here. But still, I think they have to be a little bit more aware, when they go out. I don't know how to explain it, but also,
and I do think, having that data helps support getting some funding, and that might be actually Caltrans help with funding for the bathrooms and some of the stuff, because you go down I-5 or 101 or some of these places and they have, rest stops. And so this a point, like I say, in general, that when you're coming down from Mendocino and you've had your cup of coffee, you need to find a place to stop. And so it is a pit toilet, but having those types of numbers could really help maybe Caltrans with some of this along the coast for trash and because, I've talked to my boss and we even said if they someone wanted to put a dumpster out there and help us, we could get a location to put it out there. We're not anti that. It's just us budgeting a dumpster is difficult. We've increased already what we have outside of our regular contract to get us through this 2020, and we're going back in for a new contract. And now we have to they used to pick up our recyclables for free, but now they're charging us for that. So and we didn't get an augmentation to our budget. So it's some of these non-funded mandates that come on us that are strap you as well.
Let's move to the public for questions.
Okay, we have 2 people with their hand raised in the attendee list. Then we have 2 questions in the Q&A. We'll start with Eric Frazier. Eric, you are.
Yes, thank you very much. And again, I appreciate your patience in hearing my comments. And Mike, I appreciate the service of you and your crew to keep our our coast as well managed as it can be. But I have to say, I do take exception at a comment you made about the trash being created by vacation rentals, or rentals, as you said. Quite frankly, that theory just doesn't hold up. It doesn't make sense that somebody would bring their trash from their vacation rental and put it in a park receptacle. The trash is included with that type of rent. What is more likely, though, is that people traveling, certainly if they're coming from Sacramento and quite a long road trip, that they're going to be producing trash in their car, and they're going to want someplace to throw it. So there's no, I certainly believe you that perhaps trash has increased, but I don't really buy that it's part of the rental situation. Kathy, I wanted to say that I definitely support your idea of having more signage. I think from our point of view, there isn't enough emergency type signage. I don't think we're anywhere near a proliferation of signs. Brooks, I really appreciate how you want to rely on a factual basis for decision making. And I think, Liz, what we'd find when we take a look at the records that do exist in Department of Transportation, that the visitation hasn't increased as much as you think it has. I think probably combined with a cutback on the budget for parks, you're feeling more of the impacts. And we're probably also seeing a rise in day use visitors. But I think if you were to look at all the vehicle trips into the area, you would find that it's pretty much the same. Certainly, if you go back several years. Thanks again. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Jason.
Okay. Next up, we have Steve Borobal. Steve, you are unmute and.
Yes, thank you for all this discussion. I'm with the Transportation and Land Use Coalition, and we're looking at the update of the local coastal plan, and are aware that crowding is an issue. When we talk about increasing the number of parking places, we need to realize that that will increase the load of cars on the road, and will tend to increase the overcrowding impacts. So I think we need to be careful about that. On the other side of the equation, if we allow people to park along the edge of the road, that has the consequences you've already talked about, as well as being a problem for public safety, because emergency vehicles cannot get through if there's no place for the traffic on the road to pull over. So I think it does make sense to have an ordinance that will prohibit parking on the shoulder and signage to enforce it. So those are our thoughts, and I may talk about them more when we get to the report of the parking committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, we have another person in the attendees, John Woodward. And John, you are unmuted, John. Go ahead with your question. Actually, John, you need to unmute on your end.
Thank you. Actually, my wife and I are online, and so we're listening. This is something that's very, very interesting to us. First, I'd like to acknowledge, Mike, I don't know how you can actually balance that. Basically, it seems like you're doing everything but what your mission actually, what public mission actually is. And I appreciate that. And you're trying to balance more with very, very little or less. I think that in itself is probably part of the challenge and part of the problem. Brooke, you mentioned a lot to how we can actually rationalize some of our solutions through actually having some type of data so we can actually support it to actually make some movement. But the it just how to do that and how do we validate that, because Mike's so overworked to begin with. I'm for more safety signage because that actually is a safety issue, a public safety issue. Also, I would appreciate to see some type of actual parking, because unless it's something that's an enforceable law or statute. I mean, I'm moving up from Southern California, so if it's not in writing, nobody's really truly going to listen to it. Last thing is there any way that we could, or is there any validity to actually maybe contacting other areas like in Hawaii or Southern California on how they actually handle these type of growing pains and how they actually handle high surf or parking issues and things like that? I don't know, maybe if they actually get some help to actually get some direction on how to handle a problem that maybe they've already experienced from their own growing pains that they experienced 30 years ago. That's it, but thank you very, very much for your efforts.
Okay, thank you, John.
How many more do we have, Jason?
We have 2 more questions in the Q&A. We have touched partly on this one. The first question is from George Flores. Does state parks welcome calls about small children playing in dangerous surf or people not wearing masks or distancing? Mike?
Yeah, I'm not, if he calls the ranger station, I guess, I'm not sure. Yeah, of course, if we get the phone call, and I think C mentioned that when she was out and had a lot of people out there, she went to the ranger station and reported it. So if we know about it, that's what our job is. And so we'll definitely be out there making those contacts for sure. That's why we're here. So we can do it. We don't have, you could look up the office number or just come by the Salmon Creek office, and we would definitely go to the location that the mask or the kids are playing.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. So
Kathy?
just a comment that it works because I walk the beach several times a week since I live here, and over the months there's been people illegally camping, which is kind of creepy when you're the only person walking on the beach. And I'll call the ranger station and leave a message, and they'll come out, as soon as someone's on duty, and deal with it. So they're good about that.
Okay. Linda's arrived, but let's finish with the public questions.
we've got one more in the Q&A, and this is from C. Higgins. And the question is, State Parks has a great brochure on where can I take my dog that people really like and use. Could there be a brochure made about how to behave safely in high surf conditions and have that available at all of our businesses, hotels, and vacation rentals?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be talked about, because that is the dog one is very useful. I actually photocopy it and hand it out to people when they have their dogs out there. So it is useful, and I'm sure Tim and his group are probably talking about that along with Sonoma County Regional Lifeguards. But I will make a note of that and bring that up to them for part of their discussion, because I think that anything we can get out there is helpful. And so it works for the dogs. Why not for the high surf? Well, not always, I should say, but it's useful.
Okay, Jason, anything else? Anyone else?
We have no further public questions or comments on this item.
Mike, I really appreciate your coming. This has been very valuable. I did want to say, as I did earlier, that as the Sonoma Coast MAC, by my reckoning, 70% of the coastline is state parks. And I really hope that we can and expect that we can work more closely together in like today, and really understand the issues and work together to find solutions and support one another. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to work with you. I had a conversation with Elise today, and I think that just by communicating and getting that information out there and trying to work together as a group, we'll be much more successful. And then, it gets information out to everybody. We work real good with CHP and the local fire, and so we're part of the community. And I would hope that anytime somebody has a problem, that they're not afraid to call out to the ranger station or drive by and report that, because we need the information. And we keep, we do keep stats on calls for service. So we do have some information about water rescues. The lifeguards keep the numbers on how many warnings they're given. And, that's how we have to try to justify these positions, by what we're doing out there. When you back it up with data, you seem to be a little more successful. So we're working on it.
Thank you. Moving on, Supervisor Hopkins is here, and Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate it. So I am here. I know that I had an opportunity to present before you back in November. And so you have heard about the West County Transient Occupancy Tax Proposal. It now has a letter. It is Measure B. And actually the sort of initial ballot statement and information will be going out, I understand it, in the mail this week. So you shortly should be receiving ballots in your snail mail delivery. So I am really here, honestly, to answer questions. I don't want to rehash what I already shared with you last time, but I'm happy to provide further detail or an overview, and I would leave that to you, Chair Farmer, if you'd like me to launch into something, but or if I feel like I'm speaking to an audience that already has some information, and so I'd rather dive into the details that you would like to dive into.
Why don't we start with the Q&A, and that will lead us into discussion. And if you want to wrap up at the end. So council members, any questions? Measure B or in general? Kathy.
Mute.
Yep.
So I haven't read all the details about it, so maybe I'm asking something I should already know, and I don't. Once the funds are raised for Bodega Bay Fire to hopefully consolidate with Sonoma County Fire, then would we still be collecting that tax to go to the fire district?
Yes, we would. So it is a measure that would basically go until repealed or amended by voters. And the idea is that the need for these emergency medical services does not go away. And actually, because of the way that your parcel tax is set up and in Bodega Bay in particular, there's actually a delta in terms that needs to be closed in perpetuity with respect to consolidating with Sonoma County Fire. So the money would be provided on an ongoing basis to address the impacts of tourism at the coast. My phone was blowing up all weekend, actually, from coastal residents who are concerned about the influx of tourism. And I also heard directly from firefighters that the calls that they were responding to were tourist calls that the ambulance was responding to, which was why the sort of nexus between the TOT and the emergency medical services was made. Did that answer your question, or did that? Yeah, okay.
The Measure B is quite targeted to Bodega Bay and to the school district, and it's a broad regional tax. It leaves a sense of winners and losers, and so I understand the need. And so how will we move forward with the areas that also have needs?
I think that's a great question. And, one thing to note is that there's actually broad eligibility the way the measure is written, particularly on the school side. So any school district that is within the West County TOT district boundaries, which are defined by the boundaries of Bodega Bay Fire Protection District plus the West Sonoma County Union High School District, but that's just the geographic point, right? It's not saying those are the only recipients of the fund. Any school district within that would actually be eligible to apply for these funds. to receive multi-year grants. And the education funds are actually broken into 2 phases. So the first phase is while there's this broad unification study going through the Sonoma County Office of Education. And for that phase, it's really designed to maintain and support existing programs and facilities. But once the unification study is complete and hopefully unification processes are moving forward, then it actually really broadly defines education. And so it could actually support affordable childcare. It could support, classes for seniors in terms of, technology education. It could support career technical education, trade schools, training for vegetation management or firefighting. So any of those things would fall into a very purposefully, broadly defined bucket of education. Because when we have a measure that does go in perpetuity until appealed or amended by voters, we want to make sure that there are clear priorities so that, it's not like we're going to be pulling the wool over the voters' eyes, like it has to go towards education, but that there's also enough flexibility built in that it can meet the needs of all of the different diverse communities in West County, and also needs that we might anticipate that are going to exist 10 years from now. So I think that there's been a lot of focus on the high school in the short term, and that, is definitely called out in the measure as part of that unification phase of preserving and maintaining the facilities and programs. But in the long run, it's really broadly defined to meet the needs of anyone within that geographic area. And similarly, we acknowledge that there is a very unique pressure and concern in the Bodega Bay area, and it is designed towards EMS and ambulance and rescue response. But any sort of entity providing those services within the district would be eligible for the funds. And as consolidation moves forward, right, if Sonoma County Fire, merges with Bodega Bay Fire Protection District, that actually encompasses a huge part of the West County district that's defined. As you know, of course, though, up when you get further north, it turns into Coastal Life Support District. So it's a different entity providing services. But Russian River goes up, fairways and provides mutual aid also in some of those southernmost areas of the North Coast.
Thank you. Any other council member questions? Paul.
Thank you, Linda. I guess my question is that the anticipated amount of tax that's going to be collected, is it going to be sufficient according to fire and EMS? And my real concern is that this particular tax is put into place to offset the impact of tourism. I don't know where education comes in, except that I appreciate that it's difficult for the county to find funds for education, but it just seems like a grab from education, from funds that are being created for fire and rescue.
So to address that, this was really modeled after the 2018 ballot initiative that was successfully passed in West Marin. And they chose specifically to sort of address the first responder impacts of tourism, as well as the social services impacts, or the impacts kind of to society more broadly. In West Marin, they gave 50% to fire and emergency services and 50% to affordable housing. But we face some real challenges with developing affordable housing in Sonoma County. We have obviously the coastal zone, we have high fire severity zones, and we have flood zones. And that actually defines largely the area that is incorporated in this tax. And so it's sort of the idea is that we are experiencing, as West Marin does, a loss of affordable housing stock due to the tourism pressure that has created a large number of vacation rentals, as well as second homes that are pricing families out. And so in return, we're going to invest resources into the education system, which has been negatively impacted by the loss of families and the loss of workforce. Additionally, one of the things that I think a lot about is that particularly in the lower Russian River, our workforce struggles. We have the highest unemployment rate in the county is in the community of Monterey. Highest rate of homelessness per capita in the county is in the lower Russian River. Highest rate of opioid-induced fatalities also in the lower Russian River in the county. And in a study that was generated by Berkeley last year, they actually called out the lower Russian River area as, outside of the city of Santa Rosa, where we have the most dense population, having the highest number of folks who are high users, frequent users of the criminal justice and social services systems in the county. And so ultimately, I fundamentally believe that upstream investments in education are the way to really support the community, which actually at the end of the day saves the taxpayers money. There's tons of studies out about how basically whether or not you read at a third grade level in the third grade is the biggest determinant as to whether you will graduate from high school, whether you are more likely to be incarcerated, whether you are more likely to become homeless later in life. And so hopefully by making these upstream investments, we can really invest in the community and reduce those impacts that we're seeing in adults in these areas.
Thank you, Linda. Just as a follow-up, the EMS in the area there, probably the chief and such, are they feeling like they're going to receive enough of this TOT to help them and to offset the impact of tourism?
So currently, Bodega Bay is not actually meeting the federal staffing standards. And critically, this will actually provide them the lifeline they need to add extra personnel to meet those staffing standards so that you actually, when the ambulance is away, right, that you actually have sufficient staff back at the fire station. So that's the biggest thing that this will do. And so it will not meet the full kind of deficit that's, to address the annexation in the long run, but it will provide critical upstaffing, which means that when they're away on a call for a tourist, there's still protection back at home along the coast. And it will also allow for mutual aid, right, to cover sort of a broader swath. Because sometimes they post in, right, if, there's and we actually lost our ambulance service in Occidental last year, but, if there's an ambulance that's deployed, often they sort of shift over. So they're closer to potential calls where the other ambulance is out of the area.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Thanks, Paul.
Wanda, you're muted.
There, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Okay, hey, Linda. I've just gotten the impression from talking to people that are, TOT money already is like 16%, I believe, on our tourist industry along the coast. And a lot of that money goes to the tourism board. So I went poking around and noticed there was a board of directors meeting of the tourism board on November 23rd that you attended. And you argued during that meeting that the tourism board receives an unusually high amount of the TOT money. And the board responded to you that that is challengeable. I was just wondering if you could comment on that. And then also there was just a comment made that there could be, or potentially, I guess, depending how this ballot issue turns out, that there could be renegotiation with the online travel agents. I'm not sure if you could just comment on any of that. I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we have an odd situation where the major sort of online, Airbnb.com, right, VRBO.com, they actually just provide the county with a lump sum TOT payment that is not actually broken out by geographic area. So we don't actually know who is paying the TOT, which is sort of odd. It's just any reservations that go through their system comes in a lump sum payment. Passing this measure, similar to what happened in Marin, means that actually they would have to break it out so that we would know who within this geographically defined area is actually paying their TOT through that reservation system. And so that's what we were referring to with respect to the online reservation, because they were saying, well, Airbnb can't do that. And I said, well, they did it in West Marin. And actually, according to our contract, we would be able to hold them accountable to doing that in Sonoma County as well. With respect to Sonoma County Tourism, this was actually really the brainchild of the late, great supervisor, Mike Riley, who in 2005 did something completely unprecedented and outside of the box and, actually earmarked general fund transient occupancy tax to go directly to a direct marketing organization. A few years ago, when we were renegotiating the contract with Sonoma County Tourism, and this was actually after sort of a number of scandals, there was the thing with the Super Bowl tent rental where they were paid an exorbitant amount of money and then they wouldn't disclose the contract. And we also had concerns internally to the county that they were actually buying alcohol, which is not allowed with taxpayer dollars, and that they were sort of throwing these lavish parties, and that the CEO was, taking first class tickets and just doing things that we don't do in government, but they were using our general fund TOT dollars to do it. So at that sort of period of fraught negotiations, our staff went out and looked are there any other DMOs or destination marketing organizations that actually are funded by, you know, general fund transient occupancy tax dollars? And the answer came back, no, not really. So we are really unique and unusual in the fact that we give general fund transient occupancy tax dollars that are approved by the voters, right, as opposed to self-assessed by the businesses, over to an engine that then drives more tourism to the areas. At a time when, quite frankly, I hear from a lot of constituents sort of saying, time out, we're a little bit drowning in tourists, especially in the summer right now. So it is actually a very unusual situation. And I have broached that with the tourism folks. I have suggested maybe we could pull back some of that money for fire and emergency services. And they say, no, that's really important to our budget. We need that money. So that's sort of the challenge we find ourselves in. When you look at the total percent, so we're only at 12% for actual TOT general sort of fund TOT. And so this would add 4% to that, but they do self-assess themselves. And so that self-assessment also goes to Sonoma County Tourism. So Sonoma County Tourism currently receives over $8 million a year between the general fund TOT and the BIA or business improvement area self-assessment. More than $2 million a year of the general fund transient occupancy tax. So, you know, we're looking at potentially $2.7 million to be split between investment and education and fire and emergency services. And there already is a tremendous amount of money going to promoting those businesses.
Okay, shall we move on to public comment, public questions, please? Jason.
Okay, we have Eric Frazier and the attendees. His hand raised. Eric, you are unmuted.
Yes, thank you very much. And I appreciate your presentation, Supervisor Hopkins. Unfortunately, this is a case again where the facts just get in the way of an argument. The claim is being made that this money is earmarked for specific purposes, but I recall the supervisors saying that this money would go into the general fund. So we don't really know where it's going to go. And it's a bit nebulous as far as having it go to a specific purpose. I think that the research would show that TOT is best spent on affordable housing. When somebody uses the word tourism as frequently as I'm hearing it, I can tell that they don't really understand the issues, especially when it comes to visitation on the coast. There's a, talk about creating dichotomies. It's a us versus them thing when we say tourism. That person doesn't have a name. They think wealth, people on vacation or whatever. But the TOT as well as the BIA is assessed to evacuees as well as first responders and people that are traveling on work assignments. As long as they're a short-term occupation, then they're going to be assessed these additional taxes. These taxes were not removed. The assessment of these taxes to those classes of people were not removed by the current proposal. And so not only will the region be saddled with the highest combination tax for visitors that are staying in short-term lodging, but those taxes would also apply to people that are evacuating on personal emergencies or business people, which has been the bulk of short-term stays over the last couple of years. Everybody likes to say that, oh, look at all these tourists and the big problem created by tourism, but really the facts don't bear that out. So I hope you would really reconsider this really misappropriate use of TOT. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Linda? You're muted.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Eric. I just want to clarify, and I'm not sure if you are referring to existing TOT revenues or Measure B, but I do want to clarify that Measure B is a return to source measure. So it cannot, those funds cannot be pulled into the general fund. They cannot be pulled away by any other supervisors for use in their district. It is actually written into the measure that it must be returned to the West County TOT district, which is defined by the geographic boundaries I shared before. So it would be the first time that we actually have return to source transient occupancy tax, where it actually has to be utilized within the area in which it's generated. Of course, it's not going to be exactly return to source in terms of community by community, but within that West County boundary, all of those entities would be eligible. And I would encourage everyone to read through the measure language itself. I think that I'm biased, but we did try very hard, I would say, to make sure that there is a very clear purpose while also having flexibility, as I described earlier, around the definition of education, that it could be education for seniors, or it could be early childhood education, or it could be K through 12 district education. So the purposes are very clear and it cannot be misappropriated. We do also have that citizens committee that will provide oversight on the education side. And actually the Coastal Municipal Advisory Council would have a representative on that committee as defined by the measure itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Jason?
we have 5 questions in the Q&A. The first question is from Laurie Arnold. Thank you for your time. Please recap Measure B.
Are all these questions that you'll read to us? Could we read maybe all 5 and then?
Read all 5? You got it. The second question is an anonymous attendee. Can you explain the difference between BIA and TOT? Are there any other counties that use TOT measures to fund schools? Another anonymous attendee asked, do you have data that the tourists causing the calls to emergency services are county visitors or overnight visitors that would pay the TOT? David Wabel asked, Linda, do you have data that shows vacation rentals are impacting affordable housing stock?
Great questions. So I'll just do the really quick recap on Measure B. It would be a 4% increase to the transient occupancy tax that would then, and it's within the geographically defined area of West County that I described earlier. 50% would go to fire and emergency services, prioritizing ambulance response and rescue response, and the other half would go to invest in education. It's estimated to generate $2.7 million a year, so roughly 1.35 for each side of those issues. The difference between BIA and TOT is that they're actually the same thing in terms of their percent increases to overnight stays, right? So it's something that a visitor who comes and stays in a hotel or an Airbnb or a VRBO pays and sort of at the end of their bill, right? So it's like one of those things that gets tacked on top. The difference is that BIA is part of a business improvement area wherein the businesses assess themselves for a common purpose, right? To invest in advertising. TOT is actually approved by the voters, by people who are not, the business owners, but the public at large. And then they get to, through that measure, determine how those funds might be spent. And no, there are not any other counties that I know of that use TOT measures to fund schools. So this is an outside of the box solution. However, it's following an outside of the box solution from West Marin, which was the first county, I believe, to specifically earmark a local TOT district, 50% to fire and emergency services and 50% to affordable housing. Question, do we have the data that the tourists causing the calls to emergency services are county visitors or overnight visitors? We actually do, and I wish that I had Assistant Chief Hertzberg on the call right now because he has all of that data at his fingertips. But he actually has, they have audited data. So it is, publicly available, and they actually do track the calls by zip code. And so they could actually share the percent of calls, which are the majority that are actually coming from out of the county. Next question is about data that shows vacation rentals are impacting affordable housing stock. Actually, when the vacation rental ordinance was being deliberated on by the Board of Supervisors, I believe this was in 2015, if not 2016. So it would be one of those years. It was right before I joined the board. There was actually a study that did discuss the impacts of vacation rentals on the affordable housing stock. And so some of the conclusions that were presented in the staff report on Measure B, when this was considered before the Board of Supervisors, were based on that report that was published at that time. So yes, there has been an investigation and an analysis that demonstrated that vacation rentals negatively impact housing stock. And then question on the last question, which I don't know if Jason read, but it says the proposed TOT increase would be for a multi-jurisdiction area, including the city of Sebastopol. Do voters in the city also vote on this? Great question, really fascinating answer. And I actually presented at the Sebastopol City Council meeting last night, and they did actually vote unanimously to support this measure and send a letter in support. Interestingly, people in the city of Sebastopol will vote on this measure because they are part of the geographic boundary. But interestingly, the lone hotel in the city of Sebastopol will not be paying into the TOT because they have an independent form of government. So they will be eligible really on the school side of things to compete for funding, and they will vote on it, but they will not be contributing. They actually don't, there's not a lot of TOT generated within the city of Sebastopol, and we did actually through the county just convert the Sebastopol Inn into a permanent supportive housing emergency COVID project. So they've actually lost some of their TOT revenue as a result of providing housing for our unsheltered residents. But really good questions, and thank you all.
Thank you. Is that all the public questions, Jason?
That's all we have.
Kathy, quick. You're muted.
So having been on the board of directors for Bodega Bay Fire Protection District, I think they've been keeping those statistics since 2005 or 2006. So that's how long they've been compiling those statistics as far as where their calls, who they serve.
Thank you for that information. Actually, one thing I wanted to add was that regional parks also keeps these statistics as well. And they show that roughly 2/3 of the visitors, because they have an online reservation system, and so it's very easy for them to sort the data by zip code area, that roughly 2/3 of the visitors for the overnight stays at the campground are from out of county. And actually a large population comes from the Sacramento Central Valley area. And then of course the Bay Area.
Scott, we did have 2 more questions coming to the Q&A, or actually 1 question and 1 comment.
Okay, let's take it.
Okay. First, David Wavell, did the 2.7 million estimate assume growing occupancy? How occupancy can be growing because of COVID and the fires? And the comment was from Eric Frazier, who said, we asked for the data regarding emergency services, but never was able to see it.
We can absolutely follow up and share that data with the MAC, and maybe try to get it out in a newsletter or via social media to make sure that folks have access to that. And then with respect to the $2.7 million estimate, that was an estimate working with the Auditor Treasurer Tax Collector's Office and county staff who oversee the TOT implementation program. And they used multiple years of data to arrive at that estimate. So it was not, we've in those multiple years, right? There was a high year, there was a low year. It was an average of those. It was not based on a high watermark for TOT.
Thank you.
Oh, I saw one more question come in. Should I answer it or no? Up to the chair.
Please.
The question is, we are concerned that this measure really is trying to address the El Molino and Annalee consolidation through TOT, which affects your community in Forestville. Could you please address this issue? I think that's a great question. It's a really important one to tackle. That is really why the measure is sort of broken into 2 phases, right? There is a phase in which we're really focusing on maintaining existing facilities and programs while a unification study moves forward through the Sonoma County Office of Education. I also think that it's really important to acknowledge that the potential closure of El Molino High School is not just an impact to Forestville. And actually a lot of the concern has come from North Coast students and folks who are further away, for whom they already travel an hour to get to El Molino, and an extra potentially half an hour in traffic to get to Sebastopol is a substantial burden. And there are federal studies that have been published that shows that for extreme commute times, increasing commute times actually does correlate with increased high school dropout rates. So this actually is a pretty big concern when it comes to educational attainment, which then impacts lifetime earnings, as we were discussing before. But that's really sort of looking at a short-term opportunity to sort of shore up. And I also want to be clear that any district that is participating in a unification effort or study would be eligible for those funds. So if there was another, if there was an elementary school or a middle school that was facing drastic budget cuts and they were potentially going to be shutting down, or they were potentially going to be cutting classes, they would also be eligible for that funding. Post-unification is when we open up the definition of education more broadly to include adult services, to include early childhood education. So while it will hopefully help meet a short-term need to allow the community to kind of rethink education in West County, look at the consolidation of the 10 different school districts that feed into the West Sonoma County Union High School District, in the long run, it really will kind of define education more broadly and can provide support to, potentially job training, seniors, other demographics that would not be covered for those first couple of years of the unification study. And unification is anticipated, the study will take about 18 months through the Sonoma County Office of Education in terms of the timeline.
Thank you. Did you want to have a chance to make a closing statement, Linda?
I don't think so. I just really want to thank you, Chair Farmer, for the opportunity to present to the MAC and appreciate all of the great questions. I love working with such a smart and informed group of people who are going to go for it and, you know, sort of needle into the policy, because that's what we're here for. One thing I also did to get a correction, and thank you to Leo for sending me a text message that actually he had a correction when I was describing the lump sum issue. That's actually particular to Airbnb. We believe that VRBO does remit those TOT payments independently. So I didn't want to leave that uncorrected. But Airbnb right now just gives us a lump sum to the county, and this would force them to break it out to be more geographically specific. So thank you for the time, and thanks for your patience. I was on another COVID meeting, so I feel like I'm always
Thank you.
jumping between meetings these evenings.
Thank you. Good to see you. And congratulations on your board position.
Or condolences, right? But thank you.
I understand that wholly. Elise, shall we move on to the ag and open space topic?
Yes, this is just a quick announcement that in December, the Sonoma County Regional Parks took ownership of the Carrington Coast Ranch, which is the large land space directly opposite Salmon Creek. And next meeting, we'll have a presentation by either Ag and Open Space or Regional Parks to talk about what we're looking at doing for this. But I think that this opens up a lot of opportunities to talk about. Actually, I was down with some of our MAC members looking at some of the roads and issues, and one of the big parking issue problems is right across the road at Salmon Creek. And what will it look like to have the parking at the county park right across the street? And we need to then loop in Caltrans about how can people effectively and safely cross Highway 1 between Salmon Creek State Park and the regional park at Carrington Ranch. So there are some interesting planning questions coming up on Carrington Ranch. This area offers a diversity of natural habitats, including coastal prairie, coastal scrubs, freshwater and saltwater wetlands, and tidal marsh. We have special status species, bats, frogs, and American badgers on the property. So this amazing property that has been a homestead dating from before 1860 will be a really wonderful asset in the Sonoma Coast Jewel of Parks. That's my quick overview.
Okay, thank you.
Cut a lot out. We're running out of time.
Yeah, try to move along. Regular calendar items.
Oh, Scott?
Yes.
I know we're running out of time, but I was told that Elise was going to give us an update on the LCP.
That will come in staff reports.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks.
So regular calendar items. It was brought up about e-bikes on trails and regional parks in the Bodega Bay area. Kathy, would you like to speak to that? Start that?
Unmute. Okay. This is just briefly, I've had neighbors complain about e-bikes. I should have brought it up to Mike, being used at state parks, which I think that they're allowed to, but specifically, I have seen e-bikes being used on the Prairie Coastal Trail right here at Salmon Creek. And if they're not allowed there, then there needs to be signage put that, because it specifically says no motorbikes. So they could put one of those little no e-bikes signs. That's my opinion anyway. Because a lot of people walk that trail.
Kathy, what action are you asking of the council?
Oh, okay. So I'm asking the council if they would approve the CMAC to possibly ask the county to prohibit those in areas, put signage up to where they're not allowed, including maybe educating local shops, if anybody rents bikes, as well as vacation rentals and state parks. They should have a sign at state parks on their bulletin board at the campgrounds that says e-bikes are not allowed on the coastal prairie trail. It's kind of, when you're walking along and all of a sudden somebody comes ripping along, those guys go pretty fast. So
if I can just jump in real quick, as somebody that likes e-bikes has ridden them, they are considered to be motorbikes. So they should not be on there.
You know, the Regional Parks website has a notation specifically about e-bikes, and they're prohibited. They're only allowed on paved surfaces. I understand there aren't any paved surface trails in Bodega Bay. So by their own rules, they're not allowed. So then it's an education question.
Well, I mean,
Enforcement?
I've had people with dirt bikes on that trail, and I have told them, look, go look at the end of the trail. It says right there, no motorcycles allowed. You can't do that with e-bikes. You know, of course, then I say I'm going to contact the local sheriff.
So it's an
if I see you
enforcement
out here again. But it should be, in my opinion, specifically cited because e-bikes are becoming more and more popular.
Kathy, does it say no motorcycles or no motor?
Well, it's got a sign. It's just got a motorcycle with the guy on a helmet with a no slash.
I see.
Sounds like the best next step would be to provide a recommendation to state parks that we could send to Mike later. Could you draw something up that would be of benefit and perhaps something also to the rental companies so that they can advise their clients as they're renting of the rules?
I understand that, but I'm under the impression that the county is the one that deals with the local coastal prairie trail.
Well, Mike's here. The state parks have a, do they address this?
Yeah.
Oh, he is still, okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mike, I'm sorry.
I should have got out when I could have. No.
Yeah.
No, you know, that's been a talk in our department for some time because as you said, that they're becoming more and more frequent within parks. And so we don't allow them in the, you know, on a roadway or anything like that, but on any dirt trail, it's hiking. It's very specific within our regulations, where we allow the bikes. I think there's been some concern. Some people want them use it kind of as a ADA where they wouldn't be able to ride if they didn't have the assist of the electric bike. But I'll look into where our department is. I do know that we're specific on it, and I know there's some talk statewide as how we were going to address that and what that looks like. I'm not sure, but I will look into that to see where we're headed with it because it's not unique to just here. It's everywhere. It's down south, and you get them on the trails, and so. But I can't really speak too much of it. Only then we are very clear where we can use them within state parks. So
Okay, but isn't the local coastal prairie trail, which is here at Salmon Creek, you know, and goes up to the bell tower? Okay, isn't that county maintained?
yeah, it's on.
Okay, so the
state park
county
lands.
needs, yes, the county needs to put an e-bike sign that has a line through it. No, that's what I'm asking.
Kathy, could I suggest maybe we form an ad hoc committee to explore this? And if a letter needs to be drafted, they could put this together, which we could take up perhaps at the next meeting.
Sure, that would be fine. I'd be part of it. Anybody
Okay,
else?
I can just form that, right, Elise?
Yeah, you can form it later. Yeah.
Well, no, let's, so we have 4 people we're looking for. Kathy is one. Brooks, another.
Scott, we actually do
Who
have,
else?
we have a letter written that we could go ahead and if what we want is the MAC to support us in addressing this issue to state parks and to regional parks. So
It does seem like a pretty focused Bodega Bay issue. Is anyone else experiencing this in other areas? In which case, It would be fairly easy for you guys to write a letter and send it as Bodega Bay representatives, and then the entire MAC
Okay.
doesn't need to approve it. It can be just come from Bodega Bay MAC representatives.
You know what Mike said about the ADA and assistance to people that can't ride a bike, and the electric helping them sounds like an important issue to consider. And how is that handled? I mean, the regional parks rule is clear on their website. So anyway, what you suggested, Lise, does that work for you, Kathy and Brooks?
Yes.
Yeah, Brooks. Yeah, maybe we can contact Mike too, because I know people have complained that the people are riding them on the beach. So it's like, but specifically it needs to be posted at the local coastal prairie trail. That's already ADA approved for people in wheelchairs. I see people in wheelchairs using it.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
anyway, okay, Brooks and I'll get on it.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. Nothing to vote on. Next, regional parking permit discussion. Program overview, Elise. It's 7:30, by the way, but let's
I know. I'm trying to
get
go.
through this.
I'll go fast.
Did you want to mention it?
The general concept is that this came out of community request for residential parking permit program. So this is a fairly narrowly focused concept. We've brought up a lot of different parking issues here around state parks, around Highway 1, about accessibility. But we are specifically at this point looking at whether or not a residential parking permit program would help within the neighborhoods specifically. And that is because we have so many neighborhoods where people have vacation rentals, or when they're close to the beach, and people jam up the roads so that emergency vehicles can't get through, or you may have a party house where you have 20 different cars parked there, and it's becomes an issue for residents. So this has been proposed again and again and again. In order to put a residential parking permit program in place, we would need to have an ordinance that is county-wide. We would need to be able to get parking enforcement officers that would be able to patrol it. And therefore, it's very important for us to know whether or not residential neighborhoods actually want to participate. Because it's one thing to be in a big meeting and for somebody to say, yeah, we want a residential parking permit program. But, you know, when you get down into the weeds of it, of the fact that residential neighborhoods would need to opt in, would need to purchase a parking permit if they want parking in front of their house on the street. There are details about this program that we need to dig into, and somebody needs to, from each neighborhood that wants to participate, they would need to organize it. We may pass the ordinance in Sonoma County, but then it would be an opt-in program. It wouldn't be a residential parking permit across the whole county. It would mean that a particular neighborhood would get together and say, our neighborhood, which is bounded by these streets, wants this program. And we have had 67% of the people in our neighborhood vote on this and approve it. And we understand, and these are the rules, and this is the way it's going to go, and we want to do it. And that's the way that that particular neighborhood would then be able to have a parking permit program. So this is something that has bubbled up from the community. And only if the community and neighbors want to organize it and want to participate will we do it. So the ad hoc committee put together a survey about parking and added some questions in general beyond the residential parking permit question. But really right now our focus is residential parking permit program. So with that general overview, I turn it over to Brooks, the head of the survey and the ad hoc parking, to discuss what the committee has been doing in particular.
Yeah, as Elise said, we need to hear from the neighborhoods and get your input as to how important it is that you address residential parking permits or not. And so we have released the survey. It went out last week. The access to it has been put out on Facebook and through different community communications. And so I'm hoping that we'll get a big response and that it will give us an indication as to who and where we need to address some of these parking issues. And then, of course, hoping that people from the community will volunteer to become involved to help us go along and to get these issues resolved. And as Elise mentioned, so we have mainly are looking at the residential parking permits, but we'd also like to know in general, some parking issues that you have also perhaps in your commercial areas or where there is a problem. And if you have any solutions, any thoughts. Of course, we talked tonight with Mike about, and also the Highway Patrol about how we can control or get involved there. But I think the real issue is the residential parking, and then the other parking will also just kind of fall in. And so let us know what your comments are. Encourage everyone to vote, because if we don't have a good heavy response, we really probably won't proceed with this. So it does go back onto our communities to help us give us direction as to how you want to proceed.
Elise, is the Survey Monkey link on our website?
It is on the, where have we posted it, Brooks?
On the Facebook.
It's on the Sonoma Coast Facebook, but I will, as soon as we get off this call, I'll go on the website and make sure it's on the website as well. Thank you for that comment, Scott.
Okay.
This is Jason. We've also put it on Twitter and Instagram also.
Great. Are there any council comments? Jason, do we have any questions from the public?
We do.
And
We have two hands raised. One is from 984346. I'm going to allow to talk. You'll have to unmute yourself. I believe that's *6. Here you go. Go ahead, 984346.
Okay, Brooks, John Doolittle. The only notification I've gotten is from an email Diana Bundy sent out. I've seen nothing else. I asked that Anna Taylor at the harbor send something out. I haven't seen anything, so I'm not sure what's going on.
John, check your spam because it has gone out to the harbor. It went out on Monday.
I check the spam every day. So I'm just telling you, I didn't get it. You may want to check and see if other people got it.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. I'll forward you my copy and then you can see if you can trace it back. But yeah.
Well, I think you need to check and make sure other people got it, because I may not be the only one. And as you pointed out, it's an important issue.
It is also in Bodega Bay. It is posted at the post office as well as at Diekman's and Pelican Market. And there are little tear tabs off that give you the link to it, and also a scan. So you can take a picture of the scan and get to the link.
Okay. And on
Thank
the
you.
website, and maybe resend the harbor one just in case.
Yeah.
John, were you finished? I guess so. Jason. With us, Jason?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Steve Bertowal, did you have a question? I thought your hand was up, but it's no longer up.
I see a question in the Q&A box that says, will the park have any parking? And yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Steve does have a question. Steve, you are unmute now. Proceed.
Yes, one thing that we need to think about with regulation of parking is that the Coastal Commission has a charge to make the coast available to everyone. That should have some sort of limitations, but apparently it doesn't, or they're pretty weak. So I think at some point we need to have a conversation with people at the Coastal Commission about what sort of parking regulations are available, are permissible, and so forth. I have heard that they have tried to step in when municipalities have tried to regulate parking in neighborhoods, and that they've also had problems with prohibition of parking on shoulders. So I personally believe that those things need to happen, but I think we have to get across the Coastal Commission's approach at some point here. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Elise, do you have any comment about the Coastal Commission on this?
We've got another question from Eric Frazier.
Okay, let's do that first. Eric?
Okay. Eric, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate, again, your attention. So when it comes to the Coastal Commission, we are trying to harmonize the approach to STRs with off of the Coastal Commission's research. What we're finding is that the Coastal Commission tends to run on a factual basis a little bit more. And of course, they have a broader multi-jurisdictional point of view. So by understanding and looking at information from the Coastal Commission to understand and get at best practices, I think is also essential if, of course, they can't necessarily create the regulatory environment that would help. Another key to this, I think, is working with organizations in an honest effort to see how managers and owners of vacation rentals can help solve the problem. After all, you're heaping parking issues that quite often are about neighboring residents as opposed to vacation rentals, but yet vacation rentals do create an impact. And in the inland areas, they have a procedure to go through to analyze the parking. But at the very base of it, vacation rental owners and managers want to be good neighbors. They want to provide a service, an affordable lodging experience for people. And they can also be part of the solution.
Well, Eric, they are certainly welcome to participate in the survey. I have put the survey link in the chat box for everyone to use.
Well, thank you, but
We're
certainly
outreaching to everyone, not just non.
yeah, outreach is different than working together. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just trying to get through all the agenda items now. I know
Yeah.
everyone's really eager to get to the local coastal.
Is that everybody, Jason, in the public? You're
Yes,
muted.
that's all we got right now. Chair.
Okay. So there's no motion and nothing to act on right now, correct? And so moving on, council and staff reports, chair comments. Again, I just reiterate, it's time to get into the forest and reduce fuel loads. And next, are there any reps that have, council members that have comments they'd like to make? This is your moment. I see no hands.
I'll just, I will reiterate we need to work on fuel loads. And I want to say that I think it's important that we explore not only manual fuel load but also doing some prescribed fire and prescribed grazing as well in our larger stretches of West County.
Thank you, Jay.
I have some updates on that in the staff report.
Okay. Any other council member comments? In March, I'll expect more. Moving on, that's District 5 report. Elise.
I have 3 things to cover tonight. First of all, we wanted to do an LCP update. As you'll recall, the local coastal plan public review draft was published in September of 2019, and beginning in November of 2019, we had a series of public workshops and engaged with a lot of different organization and stakeholder groups over the coming year. The next steps. Permit Sonoma will begin a series of weekly topic workshops focused on specific areas of interest that were identified in public comments and input received at last year's workshops. The topic list includes climate change, wildfire, sea level rise. That's one topic. Coastal access is a second topic. Emergency response, primarily EMS and local fire response. Vacation rentals, accessory dwelling units and affordable housing, pesticide restrictions, vineyards and timberland conversions, wineries, tasting rooms and event centers, and natural resource protection. Their preliminary plan is to hold 1-hour workshops on Friday afternoons, beginning on Friday, January 22nd. The schedule, agenda, and topic materials are posted on the local coastal plan update webpage. You can find that under Sonoma, the County of Sonoma page under Permit Sonoma Local Coastal Program Updates. I'll put that link in the chat box as well. In addition to the workshops, content on the local coastal plan, boy, say that 10 times fast, update page will be updated to provide current status of the plan and resource materials as they become available. The Planning Commission local coastal plan draft is under development and will be available in early spring 2021. The plan will be reorganized and edited to improve internal consistency and readability, and policy options will be developed in response to public and agency input. To make the recommended changes easy to track, policy options will be organized on a side-by-side table for each element, providing a clear comparison between the current local coastal plan, the public review draft, and recommended policy options. The mapping of environmentally sensitive habit areas will be updated to reflect the best available science on natural resources, sea level rise, and existing development. These maps will be available on the local coastal plan update page as they are developed. That is the current plan for local coastal plan. These pages with the full information will be included in the minutes as well and posted. Yes, Marty?
I looked at their website 2 days ago and none of this information was there. And I really looked through the website thinking I must be wrong because I remember seeing a schedule for future meetings and updates on the website previously, but none of this information was there. And the first meeting is in 2 days.
Yeah.
How do we campaign appropriately?
Okay, thank you so much. I will let them know that it needs to be up now. And I'm also going to put in the chat box right now the link so that just in case, I know how competent you are, but just in case you were not on the right page, I'll put the page up so that.
Well, I appreciate that because I realized that it was possible I was on the wrong page and I kept looking. And I'm pretty good at this stuff.
I know you are, so I'm sure that it's them, but just on the off chance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm typing it in here and also because everybody needs to be able to see it. So, but it is kind of exciting that there's another area of review focused on the specific hot topic. So that's a great thing.
At least could some of this information, or at least a link, be included in Linda's newsletter?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that would be
I'm happy to do
great.
that.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you for the suggestions. The next thing I wanted to
Thank you.
cover, if there's, that was just, is PG&E settlement funds. I was asked to provide a PG&E settlement funds update. Specifically, the question that we had was vegetation management. So of the PG&E settlement money, the board approved for vegetation management a $25 million fund and a fuels map decision support tool, $1,600,000. So between those two things, we will be providing significant resources through the PG&E settlement funds for vegetation fuels management. I don't know exactly how those grants will go out at this point. I can just, I know that they're trying to figure out what the process will be. My understanding is that the goal is to have this process happen in March so that we'll be able to start getting some vegetation projects going. Any thoughts on that before I move to the last thing?
Great news, Elise. Thank you.
It is exciting to finally be able to make something happen. Of course, it will never be enough. The last thing on my staff report is the signage. We've brought up a couple times during this meeting and before the need for better warning signs along the coast. Supervisor Hopkins, upon hearing about the serious deaths this year due to sneaker waves and high surf conditions, has pushed hard for better signage and better education around the risks. One of the things that has happened is regional parks is collaborating with state parks. As you heard from state parks, they have a lot of challenges, both state parks and Caltrans, with putting signs up. Every time you do anything involving their bureaucracies, you have years of environmental study and permitting and all these sorts of things. So our regional parks has found a way to get around some of this. 20 years ago, some warning signs were put up. You probably have all seen them. And at the time, I just like this story, so I'm going to tell it. At the time, Sonoma County was a little nonplussed by the signs because they were designed by people in LA and they didn't have anything about the need to wear wetsuits to stay warm or sneaker waves or any of the issues that we have. So there are at the moment 20-year-old warning signs which warn about, you know, dangers of that Southern Californians face, not that Northern Californians face. So the plan is at the moment they're mapping out where all those signs are and they're designing new signs that will specifically address what is the warning level at this point for wave activity. The second thing we're doing on signage that we've talked about quite a bit is we're working on electronic signs for the coast. As I mentioned, Caltrans is recalcitrant. Notice right there. Caltrans is recalcitrant to put in new permanent signage without going through environmental impact and neighborhood surveys, and they say it will take us 5 to 7 years. On the other hand, it is certainly possible for us to get signage up. We're talking with Bodega Bay Fire. They have a really great, you know, we're trying to look for places like that where it's owned by not Caltrans that still has a good overlook over Highway 1. And we're also looking at ways to finance those smaller, more mobile signs that do not run into quite so many Caltrans roadblocks. So I just wanted to let you all know that we're working hard on the signage issues, both to try to get them up as quickly as possible and also as effectively as possible, despite certain challenges. Paul?
Yeah, Elise, you might reach out to some of the other fire departments, volunteer fire departments, like in Grayton, which is miles in from the beach, but they have electronic board right out there in front of their station, and all it has to say is deadly surf, you know, and there are some others. Wilmar, I think, is another one. So
You make a great point of networking the available signs in the area. That's that we hadn't considered that. Thank you so much, Paul, for that excellent thought.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Jason, is there anything in the public venue?
Yes, we have C. Higgins has a question in the attendees. Shall I?
Please.
Hey, Sia, it's good to hear from you. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to confirm, I'm not sure who had said they had checked Permit Sonoma website, but their last workshop calendar date is January of 2020, and they don't have any future events listed. So I have not heard. I've been waiting to hear about these workshops. I'm very excited about them. So if you have a link to the schedule, that would be wonderful, and it would be great to get the word out to folks as soon as possible, because it is not, I've been checking daily, waiting, so not updated. I'm confirming.
Very, very smart people looking for it.
And at least I'm looking at it right now. And maybe they have a hidden page somewhere, but I Googled Sonoma County Local Coastal Plan.
Yeah.
And I went to their website.
I just put it in the
Thank you.
in the chat box. I am going to talk with Gary Helfrich, who's the planner working on this now. It's been passed off from Cecily over to Gary.
Okay.
All the information I have says Friday, January 22nd, 2021. So, and I just received this on Wednesday. So theoretically, this should be updated information. And I will talk to Gary about the need to update this. And we have a newsletter going out from Supervisor Hopkins covering COVID issues on Thursday, but I can this weekend put up a newsletter talking about several things that you guys have asked me to put out, the residential parking permit and the local coastal plan. So I can put that out as well.
Thank you so much, Elise. And I just clicked on your link and it takes me to the page I was looking at.
Oh, so
and
not there.
Comments are appreciated by February 17th, 2020.
Huh. Okay, we will confirm with Gary that he'd better get his act together on this.
C, did you finish?
I just wanted to say, if you do know the link for the meeting this Friday, I mean, today is Wednesday. If you know and date or link, could you share that specifically, since
yeah, we absolutely will.
There's
and
nothing in
I'll
the
put it out on. I don't know how
Permit
many of you
Sonoma
watched.
website.
I don't know how many of you watched the Coastal MAC Facebook page. We'll put it out on social media. We'll put it on Linda's page. We'll put it on my page. Send it out.
Okay, thank you. At least I'll just mention real quick that I guess Anne needs to take some classes, if she hasn't already, for being a new member of the MAC. Is that right?
I have sent out that information. Maybe we could talk about that offline, since this meeting is
Yeah,
already
just
running.
a reminder, everybody. And if you want to retake it, you're welcome. Ad hoc reports. Emergency Preparedness Ad Hoc Committee report. Paul.
Yep. Thank you, Scott. At least you gave us a pay raise here, with indicating on the agenda that we're EMS. But we're not EMS. We're just a little emergency preparedness ad hoc committee. So we don't pretend to know all that stuff. Let's see, real quick, fuel reduction. A lot has been said in the last 10 minutes about that. It's so great to hear about the veg management $25 million grant. It appears from reviewing a draft of the county strategic plan. Scott and I were both on a Zoom call on that in December. Fuel reduction does play a part in the county strategic plan. So I'm looking forward to seeing a draft of that review session. The Mid-Coast Cell Tower, this is the one in the Timber Cove area. Salt Point area. The cell tower is complete, and I think we're just awaiting activation of the cell service on that tower, and that's going to be a terrific addition to sort of this area that has no cell coverage coming down the coast. And then finally, just VFD consolidation. Our understanding is that Fort Ross and Cazadero VFDs would like to move forward with consolidation, but they haven't heard back from LAFCO. You know, all of this is sort of secondhand information that, Elise, I'm not sure if you've been contacted by any chiefs that are involved in this consolidation, but at least our ad hoc committee would encourage the MAC to support LAFCO to complete their portion of the process. And I don't know if there are any chiefs participating tonight that might want to speak to this. But anyway, that's the end of my report.
Yeah, on the cell tower, it's all about backhaul, and we have 3 corporations trying to not cooperate. But it's on its way. It's coming soon. Wanda, did you want? I think there was an update. Did you want to speak to that? You're muted.
Yeah, I will. First off, thanks, Paul, for bringing up about consolidation. And Elise, just to be clear, it's what we're wondering about out here locally is between the Fort Ross VFD and Cazadero VFD to do a merger that they proposed to LAFCO that would precede any larger consolidation. So that's you know, that's something that they haven't heard back about.
Yeah, I spoke with Mark Bramfitt, and he had a, I'm afraid I don't have the notes in front of me, because he went down, we're doing this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So he had a list and priorities, and I don't remember it offhand, but I can bring it to the next meeting and or also let you guys know after this.
Okay, and I imagine we're at this one. But anyway, thank you very much for keeping up on that. And just since I see Pole Mountain is here on the agenda, let me.
Why don't you finish up Pole Mountain, and I'll come in after you.
Oh, can I do that, Pole Mountain, right now? Just real quick. That they've all the permits have been gotten for the construction. They're continuing to raise money, and money is coming in for the construction. And we're still looking forward to that money coming in from the, what was that? The flood mitigation money. I'm sure that'll be coming in soon. And also interested in if PG&E settlement funds, if any of that at some point, you know, can be directed toward a project like Pole Mountain.
You know, I understand that all the flood mitigation funds grants have been processed and approved, and the checks should be out. So if you don't receive it by next week, please feel free to bug me again. I do not mind having my feet held to the fire, and I will go back to them and say, where the heck are the checks? And it would, and you'll be happy to hear that I've been working with our technical assistance department. They are creating a new process for us, because taking 3 months from application to checks going out is insane. And a lot of it was a lack of technological support. So they're creating a process for us where everything will be tied in, all the documents will be tied in. And as soon as we say yes, it goes to CAO, it goes out. So we should be able to tighten up this process quite a bit in the future, and we appreciate your patience.
Oh, hey, thank you so much, Elise.
Hopefully, once you get the $20,000 check, you'll, you know, stop cursing us and be happy with it.
Haven't been doing that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Land use events ad hoc report. That's me. The outstanding application is still outstanding. It's an incomplete file. But I wanted to point out that ad hocs are really short-term entities. They're supposed to be formed, take care of something, and end. And this obviously is going to be continuing. So next meeting, I'll propose that we make this a committee, which will be public. And we'll make that change. And Paul, you might, if you think that your committee also wants to go forward, maybe should we talk about that too later?
Yeah, let's talk about that at our ad hoc committee meeting.
Yeah. So Brooks, parking ad hoc, you've said a lot, but this is your chance to fill it in. Fill it out. You're muted.
I think that she covered her ad hoc report, don't you?
Are you covered? Okay, great. So call for agenda items. Please submit any thoughts and ideas to Elise or any council member. Marty.
I'd like to continue receiving updates about the LCP every meeting. And also it would be nice to have updates about COVID. I'm going to start attending those Wednesday evening meetings when I can, but we're getting lots of interest in questions from our communities about the availability of COVID vaccines. And I'm sure that's going to continue, especially now that some people are being able to get vaccinated. So just a short update in the staff report would be very helpful.
Okay, noted. Okay, I apologize for going to 8:05. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And thank you to the public. If that's everything, then Cindy.
I'm not going to take a roll. I'm
You
going to
want to
say, is there
adjourn?
anyone that's not ready to adjourn? Are we good? So,
We're
okay.
good.
So
I just want to make sure that you put me as that I showed up.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. I'll take care of that.
Okay.
And I
Thank you.
move that we adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.
Well, I.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Who's gonna be first?
Bye.
Me.
Bye.
Do, do, do.